Hey folks, welcome back. This is another Fanholes comic book sidecast. And this is Derek. I'm joined today by Mike, Justin, and Brian. And it looks like the guys just want to talk about some recent comics that they've been reading. We've got Winter Soldier, Garth Ennis's The Shadow, Marvel Comics' Secret Avengers, and the current Transformers books. So I'll just let Justin and Mike take it away with some of the comics that they wanted to discuss on the sidecast. And me and Brian might pipe in now and again, but actually, we're probably not too well read on some of this stuff. So we will defer to the experts and see what everybody's got to say.
Mike, I'll ask you really quick. I know you didn't care for some of the earlier Brubaker Secret Avengers issues. What do you think since Remainders took over?
I like it a great deal, actually. I kind of get the feeling that he doesn't really care for the whole stealth team type thing, and he just wants to write a regular Avengers book, because characters like I don't know Captain Britain and the original Human Torch, I don't think stealth when I think them, so it's
Yeah.
but
A big British flag isn't like undercover and
no,
sneaky. Is
no.
what you're trying to get at?
Well,
A
actually,
giant flaming man doesn't attract attention at all.
no. Well, but then I guess even back to the original team, it's not Valkyrie and War Machine and stuff were particularly stealth oriented either. But I like
War Machine, cloak and armor.
yeah. But I like Hawkeye's the leader, and even though it's kind of they have to kind of backtrack on Hawkeye being a decent leader, and have to be oh, he's a hothead and he doesn't lead too well,
Even though
Remender.
he's led the West Coast Avengers
Yeah,
for
I don't the way
10 years.
yeah, Remender plays it well enough so you're not too butthurt over it. Yeah, so if they can play it well enough, I'm not I'll be okay, yeah, sure, I buy that.
I did think it was funny though. Captain Britain thought he was gonna get to be the leader for 2 seconds.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. And then Hawkeye shoots him in the mouth with a glue arrow. And he's like, "Nope, I'm the leader." And Captain Britain's like, "Oh, you sodding Americans," And
Poor Captain Britain.
yeah. Well, I was gonna say although even though I said he doesn't really spring stealth to mind, he does a whole Young Justice thing where his suit can turn all black or whatever and go into stealth mode like Kid Flash or whatever. That's what I thought of when he was Hawkeye's switch to stealth mode, Captain Britain. And he was like, "Stealth mode? What do you mean?" He's like, "Make it look like you don't have the British flag tattooed all over your body." Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, right.
This first arc was pretty okay. It was. I don't know if you'd like it, Derek, because you said you didn't like that Deathlock stuff from Uncanny X-Force.
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, it wasn't the greatest thing.
Yeah, it's kind of an extension of that storyline with the guy, a father or whatever, and his big android nation or whatever. I don't know. I was kind of bummed. I won't spoil it, but the apparent death of a certain character occurred in this first arc, and I was kind of bummed about it. But
Yeah.
I kind of saw it coming. But whatever,
I was gonna say I was kind of bummed that the original Human Torch got took out so early, but hopefully he'll get better soon.
Yeah, he's a robot after all.
I wanted to ask you too, Mike. What do you think if something happens between Flash and Valkyrie? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that's pretty funny. I mean, I always thought Betty Brant is a massive bitch, so I think Flash needs to get away from her. So
It's weird. She seems kind of manic in the Venom book. Sometimes she's a victim, like she is sometimes in the comics, and then sometimes she's portrayed as a strong, independent female, which could be construed as bitchy, depending on how far they take it. But then it's kind of you're oh well, that's what I was thinking of. Where I was oh, Valkyrie. I'm where would that leave Betty? So.
I don't know. They seem to have good, for some reason, you wouldn't think of it, but they seem to have good chemistry together in the few scenes they were in, and even Flash is Venom and Valkyrie. It's this. It's the name of some '80s PI show or something.
Trying to do pitches within pitches.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I'm starting like since I like I'm currently reading three of Remender's books now. So like I said, I think I've said this before, but I'm starting to like recognize all his like ticks and stuff. And like he loves doing like the counter team and like alternate versions of established characters that they have to fight and go, "Oh my God, it's this person," and and they're all different because it's like all alternate and stuff. Like I don't know, he pulls them off well. So I mean, like if I wouldn't mind him like getting the reins to Avengers like after Bendis leaves like next year or whenever.
Yeah,
Okay. So, what about the Winter Soldier, Justin? You want to tell us a little bit about that, or what your thoughts were?
yeah, I've been enjoying that. I think I've mentioned it maybe once or twice in the show before, but it's up to issue number 4 right now, and the basic story is Red Ghost is trying to like get revenge on Doctor Doom because of the whole intelligentsia thing from like that, Loeb Hulk run,
Yeah, I
and
remember
yeah, you're like, yeah, I remember that, but
that.
but no, it's pretty good. Like Bucky and Doctor Doom have some good banter between each other when they finally come to having a confrontation, and Bucky basically tells Doctor Doom to shut up. And there's some hijinks with like a rogue Doombot involved, and the real Doctor Doom doesn't want to admit that one of his Doombots got away from his control or anything. But there's other fun stuff like
Well, what does the Doombot do? Go wear like a John Travolta pantsuit and do like the Saturday Night Fever? Like what does it do?
no, it just like goes to like the UN and like it's like rigged to explode or something, and then
Okay.
there's some other hijinks with like Red Ghost getting his hands on like Latvian nuclear launch codes, and there's some other fun stuff like a giant gorilla with a chain gun shows up that Bucky has to fight, and then there's some other some there's some
So
other
that's one of the Red Ghost gorillas, or
I I'm not sure, like they didn't make it clear. I think it's just like some kind of super ape with a chain gun, like not one of his
okay,
apes, but
okay.
there's some other stuff like some other super soldiers that like Bucky trained while he was Winter Soldier. Like these guys in their like cryo tubes or whatever, they get stolen. So Bucky has to like track them down and terminate them basically.
So Brubaker has been writing all 4 issues, or
Yeah, and he's still with Black Widow and all that. So it's I like Black Widow, and I think Bucky works well with Black Widow. So I'm glad they're continuing that partnership.
so are you gonna be grumpy because of that issue where Hawkeye's sticking his tongue down Black Widow's throat? Like,
Yeah,
you're gonna pop Hawkeye one for the Winter Soldier?
I think me and Mike will have to like fight to the death or something.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to add that I really think that Bendis thinks that like Black Widow and Hawkeye are like meant to be or something because I read that like I told you guys I read that like oral history of the Avengers book that he did or with all the like text backup stories and stuff and like
Right.
there's a whole section on like everyone gives their comments on like what they think of Hawkeye and Black Widow's relationship, and they're all like, "Oh, like Natasha's the one that got away for Hawkeye," and blah blah blah. And even Hawkeye is like, I'd do anything for Natasha.
Well,
And
he was kind of the lapdog of the Black Widow when he
yeah,
first was around, so I guess you could sort of buy that, right?
yeah.
I'm thinking since it's like a Bendis book, like Remender and Brubaker will just kind of ignore it if it actually happens.
I was gonna say, Justin, a gorilla with a chain gun, did it escape from DC or something?
I think it might have been like Congorilla's long lost brother or something.
They were having a sale on chain guns since Jonah Hex failed so miserably at the box office. They're selling them for real cheap. Even a gorilla could afford it. So
I actually wanted to ask Justin, what is like Winter Soldier's like sort of like status in the Marvel universe at large then? Like does only like Steve know he's alive and like still or Nick Fury or like
Yeah, basically they're the only guys that know he's alive. You're like, well, obviously Tasha and now Doctor Doom knows he's alive, but basically everyone else thinks he's dead. Like I'm sure that'll become a plot point, later on, like maybe issue 11 or 12. But right now, like everybody thinks he's just dead
again?
again.
So he's kind of like when back when the X-Men were like they went off to Australia and
Yeah,
nobody knew they were alive and stuff.
yeah.
Actually, I wanted to actually clarify something from way back. How was he brought back to life after Fear itself? Was that just a LMD that got killed, or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Uh,
yeah.
okay.
So it wasn't actually him
Yeah.
that got killed because that's how essential and important Fear itself was to the ongoing structure of the
You
Marvel
see in the
universe.
wizard like price guide or whatever, like Fear itself number 2 or 3, whatever it was, it says LMD of Bucky dies. Like
Yeah,
it's a note
that's
of
what it says.
importance. Yeah.
$35. LMD of Bucky passes away. Yeah.
Yeah, like, supposedly Thor was, died, but not really, because like the whole time he was like in some other realm in the Mighty Thor ongoing, like, which is actually a pretty good book if you guys haven't been reading that. But
Oh, okay.
he had to fight like this a god that eats gods, and then once he defeated that, like he got to come back and he defeated like his impersonator, and they all lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I saw like the recent issue of I think it was of just plain Avengers, but whatever the X-Men and versus Avengers tie-in issue from this past week. I kind of flipped through it, and like Thor shows up on like the Avengers like doorstep, and Cap is like, "Hey, glad you're back, Thor." And Thor's like, "Yes, verily,
Yeah.
I am back." And then they're like, "Oh, well, that didn't take very long at all, did it?"
Oh, whew. Wasn't nearly as long as you, Steve. Thank God.
Yes, verily, we must tie in.
So, how about this Garth Ennis Shadow thing? You want to tell us about that, Justin?
The issue just came out like this week, and I've been looking forward to it like ever since they previewed that first #1 cover that had like it was like a close up of the Shadow with Alex Ross art, like it really stood out to me.
And that's from what, Dynamite?
Yeah, like Dynamite seems to have this thing now where they're bringing back a lot of like pulp heroes. Like they brought back the Shadow, they just brought back the Phantom, they've done some stuff with the Green Hornet. Like I'm kind of wondering, like, who are they going to bring back next?
So, how's a Garth Ennis Shadow compared to other Shadow comics that you've read in the past, or maybe films or pulps or whatever?
I guess the only thing I would say is it's just a little bit more violent. I mean, I don't know. Like, I was listening to some of the old radio shows earlier this week, and like some of those are actually kind of violent if you listen to them. I mean, I know they were recorded like the first one was like 37 or 38. Like there was one I listened to where like this guy like basically like takes a razor to his face and cuts his face off. And I'm like, this was on the radio in 1938. Wow, I'm kind of impressed. But as far as the comic goes, like it's just a bit more graphic. When like the Shadow shoots somebody, you can see like spurts of blood coming out. But that the Shadow has shot people before, like in some of the old DC comics. Like he's had several different runs with DC. Like it's nothing out of the ordinary for him to shoot somebody. But like
Yeah.
it's just now it's like a bit of the old ultra violence. I guess they gotta throw that in there.
Yeah, I always kind of thought that the whole, Batman carrying a gun came from that kind of stuff. They always talk about how that first issue of Detective 27, was kind of a blatant swipe of some Shadow pulp story or whatever, at least in
Yeah.
terms of sort of plot and everything like that. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Shadow was running around, capping bitches or whatever.
But it's pretty good so far. I mean, it's got most of the Shadow tropes. Like he can befog people's minds, and he's got like a network of people. He's brought over to his side, and they're working for him. And Margot Lane's there, and he's doing shenanigans as Lamont Cranston and stuff like that. And I enjoyed the
That's
first
cool.
issue.
Yeah.
So
No, that definitely sounded like I remember when I read the solicitation for that and the write up on it, I was kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. Garth Ennis and the Shadow. Like, I thought those were two things that kind of seemed to go well together. Like, where you could get somebody who kind of, has a gritty, take on things. And, he's definitely, kind of tends to skew towards the violent, but then it's also, kind of like a darker, pulpy noir kind of, masked adventurer type guy. So they seem to fit well together.
yeah, like I'll say this, like I think I enjoyed this like more than any of like the DC releases from like this week. So take that as you will, listeners.
How is the interior art? do you who does that on the Shadow?
I I don't even remember who did the interior art. Like I'd have to go back and look at it, but it was actually pretty good. Sometimes they pick somebody whose talents are a little questionable, but like I really dug the artwork in the first issue.
So I think otherwise Mike just wanted to talk about the current Transformers books for a little bit and just assure everyone that they're still as kick-ass as they were when he was first praising them on the podcast way back when. So how are the More Than Meets the Eye and Robots in Disguise going for you?
Oh, still enjoying the hell out of them. More Than Meets the Eye #4 came out this past week, and great story. I won't spoil anything because I know a couple of you guys will probably haven't read it yet. If you told me that I was starting to like Drift like a year ago, like it wouldn't have been possible. But now I'm just kind of I think he's like kind of funny almost like just as like my favorite part of the issue, just like some scene just to set the plot of the issue is that Ratchet, Drift, and Pipes have to go investigate this like medical facility that broke off contact, and they sort of find it's like under quarantine because of like some kind of sort of like cosmic rust type situation. And like they break in and like they're all looking around in the dark, and like this like infected transformer like comes up behind Pipes, and Drift's like, "Look out, Pipes!" And like the next panel is Drift slicing this poor guy to like a billion pieces and stuff. And like Ratchet's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And like Drift is like, "He was gonna attack Pipes," and Ratchet's like, "He was moving at 2 miles an hour." So it just I love like stuff like that where some like more excessive force is used when it didn't need to be. I don't know, that just kind of hits my funny bone. Otherwise, it was a great issue and a great cliffhanger. The return of a character that hasn't been seen in a while, and I can't wait until the next issue.
When
That's
when I
that's
was reading it, I was wondering like who it was that was in a coma. Like I was like, who could this be? And then when they revealed it, I was like, huh. I wasn't expecting him. Like that's cool.
Yeah, as a nice return. Yeah, I wasn't expecting it either.
Yeah, I think that's all you can ask for. That they lay down some threads and some enticing plot points that kind of make you want to keep coming back for the next issue. So, that sounds like a good book to me, and that something that people should keep on reading especially if they like Transformers. Because there's not always I guess sometimes the support base for that seems to focus on the movies or toys or things like that. So it'd be good to have some well written comics get some good figures and stuff like that.
I certainly hope like the sales keep up because I hope like IDW recognizes that these current creative teams in place are really popular, and like they keep them around for a while because they just like went through like 2 years of people being less than impressed with their Transformers comics. So
Yeah, but then that works. I mean, you can say you're less than impressed all you want, but then I was trying to compare, like, because I think the most recent issues sold around a little over 10,000 copies. So I'm like, oh, I don't know how much All Hell Megatron sold, but do you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's like, yeah, you might say All Hell Megatron was a big pile of shit, but if it sold like 50,000 copies instead of 10,000 copies, then that's when you're like, oh shit, like even though you really like the title, you're like, it might be in trouble. So
I think it's pretty much stable. Like I know All Hail Megatron only sold very slightly better than like Furman's last stuff right before that. So
okay.
yeah, so it's not like I don't think they like a massive sales spike at all. So, but I guess like when like a smaller company with that like IDW, their like threshold for sales is a lot smaller than like Marvel or DC. So like
Yeah, so
10,000 copies is probably about where they have to stay.
yeah. Well, it's probably like the same thing as like bigger networks versus something like the CW. They don't have to get as high a rating share as NBC or something to keep a show afloat. So
Yeah, I would say that books like Transformers and Star Trek benefit more when there's a movie like in release or almost within release time too. Like I'd say like the ongoing Star Trek series would see a bump, when Star Trek the sequel was going to come out, and
Same thing if they ever make another Transformers sequel within the next few years.
Right, or when the last one came out, like in July or whatever. Yeah. Cool. So I guess that kind of wraps up all the comics talk we had for this sidecast. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to email us at fanholespodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, and then please continue to join us on the podcast. Subscribe to us on iTunes. We have a Blip TV page. You can also subscribe to that and see all the video versions of either the podcasts or the sidecasts. And also, if you like one of the podcasts or sidecasts or whatever, head on down to the Facebook page and like us there. Or if you're already a fan of the page, go ahead and click like on the link so we know we're doing something good. Or if it totally sucks and it pisses you off, click the thumbs down or whatever, and send us some angry emails. So however that works. Till the next time on the Fanhole Sidecast, this is Derek WC, and I've been joined by
Mike.
And Grimlock.